Hi, and welcome to episode 10 of Tennis Volley Talk. I was supposed to have an in house guest today, but that I'd change it up a little bit here because he did not show. So, what I'm going to do today is actually take an interview that I did over the phone with a tennis shop owner I knew back in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I'm from. My roots of tennis in Tulsa, Cliff Price. Now, the interview is really actually at about an hour long. And so, what I'm going to end up doing is doing part of it today and then part of it next week, the rest of it. And with that, I will also be letting you listen to the interview, but then also I will be pausing it and then letting you know what he's talking about as what I remember and tell you a little bit more of Tulsa and growing up in that era of playing tennis back then. So I hope you enjoy, and I'll start the interview, and then we'll kind of take it from there. And like I said, we'll pause it every once in a while, kind of let you know the insight of where he grew up and what he was doing back before I started playing tennis. So here's the interview, and I hope you enjoy it. And then also, you YouTubers, please subscribe to my channel. And also, you podcasters will be having a Racquet of the Day also. So if you want to see what I'm talking about, you podcasters can go to my YouTube tennis channel, Tennis Volley Talk, and then kind of take and take a look at what I'm talking about. But here's the interview, and like I said, I'll be here listening to it with you, but also pausing it and then letting you know what he's talking about. So hope you enjoy it, and here we go. Thank you for coming back to Tennis Volley Talk with Brian Danielson. Today, the episode is going to be more of me getting back to my tennis roots back in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and having the pleasure of knowing a friend of mine, Cliff Price, that owned a tennis shop back in Tulsa, Oklahoma for many years, that I've known for 30 plus years. Well, that's a long time. But anyway, Cliff, he grew up and was born in Ada, Oklahoma. Grew up, not knowing, I don't know if he was a tennis player or how he got started in tennis, but he's here today, and we're going to kind of get into that aspect of his life in tennis and how he grew up and what he did. But he was a very accomplished tennis player in Tulsa, boys 18, in Missouri Valley, Oklahoma, number one, Oklahoma State, number one, accomplishment in the Big 8 championship in 68, and that's about the time I got started in tennis, a little late bloomer anyway. But he had very accomplished years of playing tennis all the way through the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s even. In the 2000s were in doubles with his son, which is accomplished tennis player too. Growing up with Cliff, I'm sure he knew how to play tennis too. But with that, he was, grew up in the Tulsa area, in the Tulsa scene through the years at one of the most busy tennis courts back in the day in Tracy Park. And he has a lot of stories of all the people that he saw playing in the tournaments there. But today, here with me now, Cliff Price. How you doing, Cliff?
Good, Brian. How are you? I enjoy getting a chance to talk about tennis to you.
Well, I do appreciate that. And basically, kind of the basic thing too here is growing up in Oklahoma and stuff, and then when you were growing up, what were you
tennis sports family, or how did you really did you kind of find an ability that, I like this because hand-eye coordination, I can get the ball over the net. How did that all start for you?
Well, as a kid, I played. I went to a very small school through the first part of the seventh grade, a two-teacher grade school out in the country. But I played basketball and baseball there. Then started playing Little League baseball in Ada when I was 12. And the next year at 13, getting just before baseball practice started in the spring, I broke my arm, my left arm. So I couldn't play baseball, and I lived across the street from the junior high tennis courts, and I started hitting tennis balls. And that would have been in the, I believe, by the spring there, I was just finishing up my seventh grade year, then went on all summer playing tennis, and Ada did have an active tennis program. And so by my eighth grade year, I was the number 8 boy on the 8th grade team, which means that was the only people who were out. And I was the last. And I practiced and practiced. By the 9th grade year, I was the number 1 player on the 9th grade team of the junior high team. And then I just loved it. And I was at the courts every day, hitting with anybody who would hit with me. And so I went from there, I just kept playing.
Well, and also with that too, that's kind of how I grew up, hitting with anybody that I could hit with at the local high school at Nathan Hale High School in Tulsa. Of course, then he was in a little smaller town, but yet he was able to go and hit with whoever would hit with him, many different people, to start forming his game. And that's really kind of how I started with forming my game too, hitting with anybody that would hit with me at that time. It was kind of a formative way of starting to get your game down at the time. So yeah, and it was great because then you got to meet so many good different people in being able to hit with a variety of different people, and you kind of got in with the crowd that were the tennis players of the court at that time.
That's just an accomplishment, because that's about, that's kind of a nice thing to do, because that's in a sense, that's how I kind of grew up. My main court, though, was in Hale High School, back when they were white cement courts and chain link fences too, for nets.
Well, all our courts were white cement courts where I was playing.
So yeah, you kind of learned how to grow up on fast surfaces too. So
well, and I'll give you a background on that. In those days, we played only with white tennis balls, and white tennis balls. Of course, we didn't have backdrops or wind screens to help protect us from the wind. So
yeah, and back then, when he started, yes, that was white tennis balls. When I started, we started out with white tennis balls at first, and then in 75 or 76 is whenever they came out with the yellow tennis balls, and that was really, you could see a lot better, because if you were playing with the white tennis balls on white cement courts, that was kind of hard to see. And then plus the wind back in Oklahoma, no wind screens, nothing of that nature. And when it was windy, and boy, if you tried to hit a serve against the wind, it would practically come back at you as hard as what you tried to hit it back then. But yeah, until the yellow tennis balls came out, yeah, that's what we used and hit with. I was in the very end of the white tennis ball era. He was hitting with it long before I did.
White tennis balls on dirty white concrete courts that became dingy after a while, and they were very difficult to see. So we were glad for the new yellow tennis balls.
Oh, weren't we all? my gosh, I remember the old white tennis balls, the Spaldings and Slazingers and all. But I guess back then it was more Slazenger and Wilson balls back then. And then Penn came out and all that too. So with that, so but I mean that's kind of the way I grew up, and with growing up at the high school Hale. As a young kid growing up too, it was so wonderful to be able to have the old guys that used to be at the court that would, if you knew somebody, then wouldn't get there. You get there about 8 o'clock in the morning, and if you didn't know anybody came up, they wouldn't get a court till 3:30 in the afternoon when everybody was finished playing. And that was kind of what Hale was like in the group that I played up with too.
Well, in Ada, the meeting place at the time when I was in the 8th grade, even up until a sophomore in high school, was the East Central University 5 tennis courts.
Oh, okay.
And that's where everybody met. You never called to get a match. You met, and I would play with the boys, the girls, the senior players back then, and just anybody who would hit with.
And that's about what I did too at Hale, hit with the senior players or anybody that was up there when I went up there. So you kind of learned a formative game. Of course, then being young back then, you think that you could hit through these guys, and all they had was the finesse, and you haven't learned finesse, and they just could win against you almost at will because of their finesse and how they played a different kind of a game than what you thought you had. So they just absorbed your power and what you had hitting at them and just finessed you and ran you ragged. By the time you were done with 2 sets, you were darn tired by the time you played them in 2 sets.
Back then, you probably, hitting with some of the big boys that hit the ball really hard and good. You kind of grew up hitting the ball hard and not with too much finesse, because you kind of learn that, I got to keep up with this and hit with them and just kind of try to overpower them as much as I can in a sense.
Well, it was really more back then. Everybody rushed the net because the courts, being concrete that we grew up on, were very fast. So it was a matter of trying to get who got to the net first, and we learned to kick serve at a very early age. Everybody did. Again, we call it the American twist, but in kick serve. And we would rush the net. And so we really didn't have very good ground strokes as we went along, although I had a little better because, quite honestly, I played a lot very early with girls' team players, because the boys didn't really want to hit with me because I wasn't quite good enough. And so they had better ground strokes than the boys. And so I got that benefit, and so then I developed my game, not knowing this, but probably better, because I learned to hit ground strokes where a lot of the boys just served and volley.
Well, that's true. And then learning.
And then with me, with growing up too, and being on the fast court, I just never really thought about the serve and volley. I always had the ground strokes, and I just stayed back. I never hardly served and volleyed, in which I really should have learned a lot more of how to serve and volley. Probably would have made me a little bit more of a consistent and better player with learning the serve and volley better. But yeah, with that, him in learning on fast courts like that, you learn to do the serve and volley that he learned, and then learning the ground strokes the way he did with the girls, because the guys that didn't want to hit with him because he wasn't that good, he hit with the girls that had the better ground strokes. So that's what kind of helped him with his formidable ground strokes at the time too.
In those ground strokes, you kind of learn the angles and hitting that, and you probably frustrated a lot of the guys when you started hitting against them, going, "Well, I know I can beat this guy," but they couldn't.
Oh, they all said that. Yeah.
Oh, I know, because I played with so many of the old guys that had the touch and everything, and here I am thinking I'm going to beat these old guys, and they just finesse me all over the place. It's like, oh, I know I could beat him, but no, never could, until a few, choice few, until I got older, and then finally beat a few, and it was like, oh, okay, now I know how to do it.
And of course, we just learned by watching and hitting. We didn't have anybody to give us lessons, so we didn't have that. So we just learned.
And that's true. I mean, so did I. I mean, it was learning by hitting and learning by just watching too. And no lessons, no back then.
Well,
just kind of learned.
And of course, we had no video of anybody playing, so we would see pictures of somebody, but that was the best we could do.
And yeah, not having back then, not even having videos of seeing and how a stroke is done, and with just pictures, still pictures of tennis players that are hitting the ball, helped a little bit, but you really didn't get a grasp how the technique was until videos came out. And that's whenever the exponential part of learning how to hit the ball came with the videos that came out later in tennis.
Yeah, that would be the best. Looking at it, well, look at how he's holding that forehand or that backhand, and things. And my first starting was probably about the time you were the Big 8 champ in 1968. Is when I started on the one.
That's when I was Big 8 champ. That's right.
Yeah, and that's when I started, was on the one little lonely tennis court over at Skelly High School, or Skelly Junior High School, and their one little tennis court that they had there. And that's when I started. My mom said, "Why don't you get outside and find something to do? You're always around." And I went, "Oh, okay." And then I found tennis, and then later on it was, "I never see you. Why don't you stay home?" So I couldn't win for lose. So I just stayed playing tennis, and I've been playing tennis ever since.
Yeah, me too. And I forgot to add one important thing. At the early stage of learning to play, both the junior high courts and the East Central University courts had backboards, and so that we could hit off of. And that I hit millions of balls on those backboards even before someone got there to hit with.
And that was always a plus of having a backboard, because if you didn't have a backboard, I mean, that kind of made it a little difficult. Okay, what can I do? Well, practice my serve. That's about all I can do. Maybe practice a few ground strokes.
And yeah, back then, Hale High School, they did have a backboard, which was very good. It was all wood back then. So it got a little warped, and sometimes you got some crazy bounces, but it did help having the backboard, and you could kind of hone your ground strokes of what you had back then. Always good to have a backboard to hit against, to keep your strokes kind of grooved, so to speak.
Strokes, or hit the ball up in the air and try to do some overheads or something. But that's about all you could do. If you had the backboard, that did help a lot. But of course, the backboard always won.
Of course, but I learned to play different ways, points. I'd even play a match on a backboard.
Oh, that is so cool. I mean, you go through it all through your head, and okay, 40 or deuce. Okay, now it's add in. I got to hit this shot down the middle, down the tee. So come into the net, hit that volley. But I'm sure that learning and growing up on the cement courts too, and you growing up and hitting the ground strokes with the girls did help a lot too. But you and a lot of you back then learned to volley really well because of the fast courts too.
Yes, we that was incorporated very early in our day.
Mm-hmm. And then that really probably helped a lot when you're growing up and going through doubles too in your career.
I was a better doubles player early on than I was a singles player. So yeah, I learned to volley, and we had the kick serve, and so yes, we played a lot of doubles.
that's one thing is too, that kind of hones in your volleys too, and your serve and volley game too. So you can hit to the net.
Yeah, and the same thing worked for our son Nathan when he finally, the more doubles he played, because in his growing up, it was all from the baseline, aggressive baseline, and consistent baseline early on. And he learned to volley from playing doubles in junior tournaments, and then in college he became a very good volleyer in college, where he was playing against really tough players.
Oh gosh, that's probably the best in learning that too, and learning how to volley good, because that takes a lot of time away from so many people, that you can get to a good volley and do that, and stuff. But with that, I mean, because I was kind of a late bloomer and starting about when I did, you probably back then in learning that you did, you kind of picked it up and probably just picked it up a lot quicker and faster than what I did, because I just didn't have the real good people to play with. I just had the old guys at the tennis court that kind of were back and forth and angle and soft shots and all that, but I still learned the ground strokes and learning from there to just be able to hit the ball and just, get out there and play, doubles and singles, and then having my friends that I played doubles and singles with too.
Yeah, I know that Ada, even though it was a small town, it had a very active tennis program, our active tennis community, and so I had lots of chance to play against good athletes that were already playing much better tennis than I was. Yeah, I got to do both.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
And with that too, being able to play with the better players that he played with, that did kind of enhance his game a lot more. As far as with me, it was the older guys at the court that were all the finesse and everything, and some harder hitters, but that's how you kind of learn. But on any one given Saturday with me, if you showed up at the court about 8 o'clock in the morning, like I said earlier, they'd be playing doubles already. All 4 courts would be full. And then as one person left, they'd say, and if you're waiting to play, they'd say, oh, come on over, fill in. And then you'd finish the setup and you'd keep on playing. And then if somebody else left, then the person you came with or what was waiting for with you would go in and fill in on the other side. And then you'd kind of be playing all day practically through that time. So with that, as far as that goes, what I'm going to do here now is, with that, I'll probably continue with the second part of that. Might be a little longer next week with the that portion of it. So what I'll do is I'll end then, but right now to show you this bracket of the day. What I'm talking about right now. You can go to my YouTube tennis channel, Tennis Volley Talk, and you can see what I'm talking about with the racket of the day. But today is the racket of the day. It is a racket, tournament racket, and it's an old Montgomery Ward racket that Montgomery Ward came out with. Now this racket here with these strings right here at the very bottom, they are also have knots on one side and then smooth on the other side. And this is probably reminiscent of I would say probably late 1930s, early 40s rackets, because if you wanted to learn how to, or if you wanted to know who was going to spin or who was going to win for serve, what you do is you'd spin it and then you'd ask not smooth. And whatever was facing up would be either knots or it would be smooth for you on the one side. So that's how you kind of learn how to win the serve. So it's a Montgomery Ward racket. And I'd say, like I said, probably late 30s, early 40s is what this racket. And it does have the covered handle on it, the racket handle, and but it's very well made racket. I have two of them actually, a Montgomery racket. Now also Montgomery Ward was the world premiere in mail order business. Later also leading department store chain that started in 1926 with the department store chain, where they had 556 stores across the country, with those stores being a department store at the time. But Montgomery Ward actually operated from 1872 to 2001. The current Montgomery Ward is a mail order catalog company now, after the original Montgomery Ward shut down. But that's kind of the history of Montgomery Ward and what it's all about. And they did make tennis rackets under their own name, Montgomery Ward, and sold them as Montgomery Ward rackets. So very nice racket, very sturdy racket too. And just that's what the racket of the day is for today. So yeah, I hope you enjoy. And with that, like I said, you YouTubers, you see that, please subscribe to my channel. Let me know what you think and what you'd like to hear me talk about. And with that too, then also you podcasters, if you still want to see what I'm talking about on this, look at my YouTube channel, Tennis Volley Talk, subscribe, let me know what you like. And so everybody out there, you have a good day, good week in playing tennis. And I appreciate you listening, and everybody have a good week. Thank you.